Do you remember back in the good old days of thrifting? Back when you could fit 3,000 people in approximately one 1,000 square foot house. Back when it didn't matter if you were elbow to elbow someone right at the same estate sale because there wasn't a pandemic going on. Do you miss those times? Because I do. Hello folks, my name is Stephanie Canada. Yes indeed, just like that country, and no, I don't live there. If you enjoy vintage, thrifting, and sarcasm, go ahead and click the subscribe button so you never miss an upload from me. Now, a topic that might be slightly controversial, but is sort of necessary to discuss in these times we live in, is how I thrifted in 2020 and how I anticipate thrifting through the majority of 2021.
Give me 6 feet.
Now, to give some context to this video, I live in the United States, Florida, to be more specific, or as we like to call it, the Wild West of restrictions to general daily life. Because we like to pretend that there isn't a pandemic going on. So what that means is that some of the restrictions I might be showing you today are a little bit looser than the areas of the country that you may be in, but never fear, friends. I have just avoided all of this by making sure that I leave the house as little as physically possible. But really what's most important is your safety. So what I would advise is really continue to do as much thrifting as possible via online resources. I do have a video that I did based entirely on my online resources that I am using. And you can check out the link down in the description box below once this video is done. But on the rare occasions that I have left the house, masked, sanitized, not toilet papered, but that would be really funny. I do have a couple of things that I have seen along the way and some practices that I absolutely lean toward when I'm choosing where to spend my money. So I'm going to start this list from the least frequented / places I avoid the most and head up to the places I go most frequently. And we'll end with some of my online resources that I have added to my little entourage, or just as a reminder because they're the really good ones. So what I will do is I will go ahead and put timestamps down below so that way I can make little chapters for you. So if there's one place that you have a particular wondering of how I have decided to go there, you can just jump right to it. I never have this close to me. But for now, let's grab our coffees and get started. So the very first one that I actually haven't even really gone to are yard sales. I just haven't been doing them. It's not to say that each individual isn't taking their own precaution. I have definitely heard of some sellers that require masks, require social distancing, and I think that is great. However, it's not something that I'm personally willing to do right now, except on like the one singular occasion that I went to one. And the reason that I ended up going to this sale in particular is because on the signs as I was driving by, it said, mask required, which to me tells me that you're taking your safety and my safety in the utmost regard. And that is a winning idea for me because that means I'm gonna come spend money with you. But that's not the only one that I've stopped really going to. Next up on my list is going to be the Goodwill outlets, also known as the Goodwill bins. This is on my no-fly zone. I went exactly one time. And no thank you. The one singular time that I went to the Goodwill bins, I'm not saying that I didn't find good things. I actually really did, and it was a lot of vintage stuff that normally is really picked over at my bins or just non-existent because other sellers are there. However, while I did go the one time, I was sort of, flabbergasted. There was no real limiting the capacity in the building, and there wasn't any social distancing that was being enforced. When the new bins were brought out, it was the same general pile on top of each other that we had seen, I don't know, pre-pandemic. So, no thanks. I was the weirdo that was at all the other bins that everyone had left, and I was kind of trolling the leftovers. That's really what I was doing. And if anyone got near me, I ran away like a mouse from a cat. So yeah, not really my vibe, and not really something that I really encourage because the masks were more like chin guards or mustaches. Yeah, so just no. I don't think I'll be going there again anytime soon, at least to the one in Orlando, Florida. And thankfully one that isn't as bad is thrift stores. Thrift stores actually have been shockingly not so bad. 2 thumbs up. Good on you, thrift stores. My tips for making thrift stores work are going to be, make sure at the door you see the masked sign, so that way you know that the actual store is taking it seriously. You want to make sure that you're looking for the arrow directionality and trying your best to go along with it. Sometimes it's not always possible, but I do absolutely advise that you follow the directional arrows. Other things I've noticed is that I actually enjoy the thrift stores that have made their aisles smaller, so that it's actually much harder to go 2 directions down the aisles, which makes me feel like a mouse in a maze, but hey, as long as there's cheese at the end, I don't really care. And the other thing that I really do advise is make sure that you're trying to go on non-peak hours. So if they're really popular on Saturday and Sunday, try to go on a Monday during a lunch break, or just try and find the times when your thrift store is less busy, so that way it's a lot easier for you to social distance from your fellow humans. Now, at the very beginning of all of this, when people were just starting to reopen, I noticed that the restrictions were really held much better in place than they are now. People are sort of back to their old ways of going whichever way they want, ignoring the signs on the floor, and just kind of cramming in next to each other. So when I have someone that gets a little too close to me, I run away. 'Cause no thank you. Get away from me. And those are almost as good as estate sales. Now, I am very picky about the estate sales that I go to. I read every single listing on estatesales.net very carefully. The ones that I go to have the following restrictions. 1, you must have a mask on your face. 2, they normally are limiting the amount of people in the house. Depending on the size of the house, it's upwards from like 10 at a time that are allowed in to 20 at a time, so that they're really making sure to keep as much social distancing as possible in the rooms that are available to look at. I'm also looking for ones that notate sanitation stations available, which is always fantastic. And for me, really when I'm going to the estate sales on the occasions that I do, I spend a lot of time looking at pictures and very little time in the building. Because if I limit my amount of time in a house that may not have great air ventilation, I feel a little bit safer about my choices that I'm making. So needless to say, if you are an estate sale dealer and you're watching this, take really good photos. That way all of us can socially distance our way into a healthy 2021. But absolutely none of those are as safe as online options. Now, your online options are going to be very plentiful at this time, although I will say that there has definitely been an uptick in the amount of competition that I've seen. Now, things like buying on eBay and the Goodwill auction site are not new to my channel, but there have been some new options that have popped up through 2020 that I want to bring your attention to. The first is going to be the Goodwill Blue Box. These drop every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I would advise being there a few minutes early, so that way you don't miss out on the boxes that you want, as they go very fast. Now, sometimes there are limits to these boxes, so you really do have to make sure that you are paying attention, and it is advised that you actually try and buy something before you are ready for a drop, so that way you can just do a one-click checkout situation. And just remember, sometimes you're gonna get gems, sometimes you're gonna get duds. It ranges the gamut. I personally have not been able to acquire one that I wanted yet, but when I do, I will happily share it with you here on the channel. Now, there has been another box that has come up, and that is the ThredUp Rescue Boxes. Now, we're just going to push pause here for just a second and note that yes, ThredUp has definitely changed some of its selling enticements. There are lots of other videos on those, so take this all what you will with a grain of salt. I know that ThredUp is definitely not for everybody right now, especially with the way that they've changed how they deal with their sellers that send items into them. However, if you're looking for a quote rescue box and you want to give it a shot, it'll be 25 mixed items for $60, which isn't too bad, but again, you have no idea what you're getting. So there's definitely a mystery box level of this endeavor. And the last way that I really do advise doing online shopping is actually trying it locally. Whether it's Craigslist, OfferUp, or Facebook Marketplace, or your any other chosen local deal apps for your phone, I do advise really making sure that you are actually trying the curbside pickup. The way that I've been able to do this here in Orlando is we actually normally work out with the seller some type of arrangement where if I'm buying something, I will either pay half and then pay half as soon as I pick it up from the porch, and we wave at each other, some way to really make sure that you are getting the item that you're asking for and that the seller knows that their item will be picked up safely. Because I know porch pickup and curbside pickup aren't always the best or most available for most resellers. But for me, I'm lucky I'm in Orlando. A lot of us just have porches that we can leave things on. Well, folks, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight of how I've been able to safely thrift through 2020 and how I will continue to safely thrift into 2021. I indicate quotes because it's never 100% safe. There's no guarantee, but it does give you a better chance of really trying to stay as safe as possible in these interesting times. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that like button. That way I know that you'd like to see more content like this. making sure that you hit subscribe so that you don't miss future uploads from me. And if you want little happy presents in your notification bin from me, go ahead and click the bell so that way YouTube will push you a little notification and let you know every time I upload a new video. Thanks so much for watching, folks. We'll see y'all next time. Okay. How I thrifted in 2020 and the future. Stephanie is trying her best. Oh wait, that's Jarvis's line. He has such a good intro. How I thrifted in 2020 and how I can is how I thrifted in 2020 and how I continue to anticipate to continue thrifting. So what this means is that some of the things that I'm showing you today are probably a little bit. I'm also looking for anyone that knows it's not words.